Dr. Marcus Webb stared at the massive holographic display in the communication center of Frontier's Edge Research Station. The image showed a creature that looked like it had stepped out of humanity's worst nightmares. General Thane of the Corvan Empire stood 3 meters tall, his reptilian body covered in natural armor plating that gleamed under the harsh lights of his command ship. His yellow eyes, each the size of a human fist, fixed on Webb with an intensity that made the scientists' skin crawl. The Corvans were legends throughout this sector of space. They had conquered 17 star systems through sheer force and had never been defeated in battle. Their claws could slice through steel, their hide could deflect most energy weapons, and their military technology was centuries ahead of anything humans possessed. They were the undisputed apex predators of known space, and they bowed to no one, which made the general's next words all the more shocking. Dr. Webb, General Thane's voice rumbled through the translation system, the Corvan. Empire requests your assistance in protecting our young. Webb blinked. He looked around the communication center at his team. Lieutenant Amy Torres, their security specialist, raised an eyebrow. Dr. Ben Park, their communications expert, leaned forward in his chair. Everyone seemed as confused as Webb. I'm sorry, General, Webb said slowly, but I think there might be a translation error. Did you say you need our help protecting your children? The massive reptilian head nodded once. There's no error, human. For the past standard year, 17 of our nursery worlds have suffered attacks. Our greatest warriors have failed to stop them. Our most advanced defenses have proven useless. We have nowhere else to turn. Webb felt his heart racing. The Corvans. Asking humans for help was like a dragon asking a mouse for protection. It made no sense. The Corvan military was famous throughout the galaxy. Their ships could destroy entire fleets. Their soldiers were born killers who started training from the day they could walk. General, with all due respect, Webb said, your military capabilities far exceed ours. Your technology is more advanced. Your soldiers are stronger, faster, and better armed. What could we possibly offer that you cannot provide for yourselves? General Thane's massive form shifted slightly. If Webb didn't know better, he would have said the creature looked uncomfortable. Our young are dying, Doctor. Webb, despite all our strength, despite all our weapons, something is killing our hatchlings. We have tried everything. Traditional defenses, advanced technology, our finest warriors. Nothing works. Webb exchanged glances with his team. Torres was already pulling up tactical reports on her tablet. Park was recording everything for later. Analysis. This was unprecedented in galactic history. What exactly is attacking your nurseries? Webb asked. We do not know, General Thane admitted, and Webb could hear the frustration in his voice. The attacks happen during sleep cycles. No alarms are triggered. No physical evidence is left behind. Our guards report feeling confused and helpless. During the incidents, many of our finest warriors have requested transfers rather than face another attack. Webb's scientific mind started working. Unknown attackers that could bypass advanced defenses without leaving evidence. Guards who became confused and helpless. It sounded like something beyond conventional warfare. You mentioned 17 nursery worlds, Webb said. Are the attacks coordinated? They appear to be, General Thane replied. The pattern is consistent across all affected worlds. The attackers seem to know exactly when and where to strike for maximum impact. Dr. Park leaned forward. General, have you consulted with other species about this problem? The reptilian eyes narrowed. We do not ask others for help. This conversation is already difficult for us. However, we have learned that 3 other apex predator species have been experiencing similar attacks. The Ravik clans, the Draconi hives, and the Apex Consortium have all reported mysterious assaults on their breeding grounds. Webb felt a chill run down his spine. 4 different apex predator species, all experiencing the same problem. This wasn't random. Something was specifically targeting the young of the galaxy's most dangerous creatures. General Webb said carefully, why do you think humans can help where your own forces have failed? General Thane was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than before. 3 weeks ago, a human merchant vessel was attacked near one of our outer colonies. The ship was carrying a family with young children. It's the same type of attack that has been devastating our nursery struck the human ship. Webb waited for him to continue. The human adults experienced some disorientation, but they remained functional. They organized a defense, protected their children, and drove off the attackers. This is the first time we have seen anyone successfully resist these attacks. The implications hit Webb like a physical blow. Humans had somehow resisted an attack that left Corvin warriors helpless. But how was that possible? Humans were weaker, slower, and less advanced than the Corvins in every measurable way. We need to study this phenomenon, Webb said. If we're going to help you, we need to understand what we're dealing with. We'll need access to your nursery worlds, your security records, and interviews with your guards. Agreed, General Thane. Said immediately, we will provide whatever you require. Time is critical, Dr. Webb. We are losing approximately 50 hatchlings per attack. If this continues, our population growth will be severely impacted. Webb nodded. We'll need to prepare our team and equipment. Give us 3 days to get ready. You have 2 days, General Thane replied. Another attack is expected soon based on the pattern. We need you there before it happens. After the communication ended, Webb sat in silence with his team. The enormity of what they had just agreed to was sinking in. They were about to investigate a mystery that had stumped the galaxy's most advanced military minds. This is insane, Torres said finally. We're talking about protecting aliens who could literally eat us for breakfast. It's also the opportunity of a lifetime, Park added. If we can figure this out, we'll be heroes to some of the most powerful species in the galaxy. Webb stood up and walked to the viewing port. Outside, the stars seemed different now. Somewhere out there, something was hunting the young of apex predator species, something that could bypass any defense and render the galaxy's greatest warriors helpless. Something that humans had somehow managed to resist. Get our equipment ready, he told his team. We're going to find out what's really happening out there, and we're going to figure out why humans seem to be immune to whatever is causing this. As his team dispersed to begin preparations, Webb remained at the viewing port. He had a feeling that whatever they discovered would change everything they thought they knew about humanity's place in the galaxy. The apex predators were asking for help, and somehow, against all logic, humans might be the only species capable of providing it. The transport ship carrying Webb's team dropped out of hyperspace near Keth Prime, the first Corvin nursery world they would investigate. Webb pressed his face to the viewing port and whistled softly. The planet was surrounded by more military hardware than he had ever seen in one place. Massive, orbital defense platforms ringed the world like metallic moons. Each platform bristled with enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. Patrol ships moved in constant patterns around the planet, their hulls gleaming with weapon arrays. Energy shields shimmered in the space between the platforms, creating a protective bubble around the entire world. They're not taking any chances, Lieutenant Torres observed, checking her tactical scanner. I count 47 major defensive installations, plus at least 200 patrol vessels. Dr. Park was monitoring communications. The chatter is incredible. They have more ships here than most species use to defend their homeworlds. Webb nodded grimly. And despite all of this, something is still getting through and killing their young. Their transport was escorted to the surface by a squadron of Corvin fighters. The landing zone was built into the side of a mountain, with the entrance hidden behind multiple layers of armor plating and energy shields. As they disembarked, Webb got his first close look at Corvin soldiers. They were even more intimidating in person than on the holographic display. Each warrior stood at least 2.5 meters tall, their reptilian forms covered in natural armor that looked like it could stop bullets. Their claws were the length of Webb's fingers, and their teeth were designed for tearing flesh. These were creatures born for war. Commander Vosh, their Corvin liaison, met them at the landing platform. Unlike General Thane, Vosh seemed nervous, constantly looking around, as if expecting an attack. Dr. Webb, Vosh said through the translator. Welcome to Keth Prime. I must warn you, the situation has worsened since you departed your station.
Hatchling,
We lost 37 hatchlings 2 nights ago. Webb felt his stomach drop. Yes, the 7th attack this month. Our losses are accelerating. Commander Vosh led them through the facility. The nursery complex was built deep into the mountain, with multiple levels connected by armored corridors. Every 50 meters, they passed security checkpoints manned by heavily armed guards. Energy fields blocked access to critical areas. Sensors monitored every centimeter of space. This place is a fortress, Torres muttered to Webb. I've seen military installations with less security. The nursery chambers themselves were surprisingly warm and humid. Hundreds of large eggs rested in carefully controlled environments, tended by Corvin females who watched the human visitors with obvious suspicion. The eggs were nearly as large as Webb himself, with tough shells that looked almost metallic. Hatchlings emerge after 60 days, Commander Vosh explained. They are vulnerable for the first 10 days after hatching while their natural armor hardens. This is when the attacks occur. Webb examined the security systems in detail. Motion sensors covered every angle. Heat detectors monitored temperature. Changes pressure plates would detect anything heavier than a small animal. The entire facility was sealed and pressurized, with only a few heavily guarded entrances. Commander Webb said, "Walk me through exactly what happens during an attack." Vosh's reptilian features darkened. The attacks always occur during the night cycle, when the hatchlings sleep most deeply. No alarms sound. No sensors detect intrusion. The first sign of trouble is when the guards begin to feel wrong, how? Confused, frightened, unable to think clearly or take action. Some describe it as feeling like their minds are being drained away. Our strongest warriors become helpless as newborn hatchlings. Dr. Park was recording everything. How long does this effect last? 20 to 30 minutes. When it passes, we find the casualties. The young ones appear to have simply faded away. No wounds, no signs of struggle. They just die. Webb frowned. That doesn't sound like a conventional attack. It sounds more like some kind of energy drain. We have considered this possibility, Vosh replied. Our scientists believe something is feeding on the life force of our young, but we have no defense against such an attack. That evening, Webb's team prepared for their first night in the facility. They set up monitoring equipment in the main nursery chamber and established communication links with the Corvon guards. Webb had a theory he wanted to test, but he hoped he wouldn't get the chance. Unfortunately, at 0300 local time, his equipment began registering unusual energy readings. Webb Torres called from her position near the entrance. Something's happening. The Corvin guards are acting strange. Webb looked around the chamber. The massive Corvin warriors who had been alert and professional just minutes before were now standing motionless, their weapons hanging loose in their claws. Their eyes were unfocused, as if they were looking at something far away.
Parkar?
You getting this?
Webb
called to his communications expert. Yeah, and it's weird, Park replied, his voice tense but clear. I can feel something trying to get into my head, but it's like trying to push through thick fog. I can ignore it. Webb felt it too. There was a pressure at the edges of his consciousness. Something trying to cloud his thinking and make him confused. But unlike the Corvin guards, he could push back against it. His mind remained clear and focused. Then he saw them. Shapes moved through the nursery chamber, barely visible even with the enhanced lighting. They looked like shadows with substance, dark forms that seemed to shift and flow rather than walk. There were dozens of them, moving among the eggs with purpose. Torres, Webb shouted. It's 12 o'clock, moving toward the hatchling area. Torres raised her weapon and fired. The energy beam passed through one of the shapes, but instead of having no effect, the creature recoiled and let out a sound like static. Electricity. It was hurt, but not destroyed. They're partially phased, Park called out. That's why the Corvin sensors can't detect them. Webb watched in fascination as the shadow creatures continued their attack. They moved to the newly hatched young and began to drain them somehow. The baby Corvins grew weaker and paler as the creatures fed, but the human team was fighting back effectively. Torres had adjusted her weapon settings and was driving off. The attackers near the main nursery area. Park was coordinating with the few Corvin guards who remained even partially functional. Webb himself was directing their efforts while continuing to monitor the phenomenon. After 20 minutes, the creatures retreated. The attack was over, but this time was different. Instead of finding dozens of dead hatchlings they had saved. Most of them, only 3 young Corvins had been lost, compared to the 37 from the previous attack. As the strange mental pressure faded, the Corvin guards began to recover. Commander Vosh stumbled over to Webb, his massive form shaking. "How?" Vosh asked simply. "How did you resist them when we could not?" Webb looked around the chamber at his team. Torres was checking her equipment with steady hands. Park was analyzing the energy readings with clear focus. They had all felt the attack, but none of them had been rendered helpless like the Corvins. "I don't know yet," Webb admitted, "but we're going to find out. This is just the beginning, Commander. We need to understand what these things are and why humans can fight them when your people cannot." As they began collecting data from the attack, Webb realized they had stumbled upon something far larger than a simple security problem. These creatures were specifically targeting the young of apex predator species, and they had developed a method of attack that was nearly perfect against every known form of life. Nearly perfect, except against humans. 3 weeks after the attack on Keth Prime, Webb's team had gathered enough data to piece together the terrifying truth. They sat in the research lab aboard their ship, surrounded by holographic displays showing energy patterns, attack timelines, and biological scans. The picture they had assembled was worse than anyone had imagined. "They're not from our dimension," Dr. Park announced, pointing to a complex energy signature on his screen. "These readings show quantum fluctuations that only occur when something is shifting between dimensional phases. The attackers exist partially in our reality and partially in what we can only call psychic space." Webb studied the data. It explains why they can bypass physical defenses. Traditional sensors and weapons are designed to detect matter and energy in our dimension. These creatures operate on a completely different level. Lieutenant Torres had been analyzing the attack patterns from 17 different worlds. "It gets worse," she said grimly. "The attacks aren't random. Look at this timeline. The creatures hit each world at precisely calculated intervals, always when the young are at their most vulnerable developmental stage. They know exactly when to strike for maximum feeding." "Feeding?" Webb asked. "That's what they're doing," Park confirmed. "The energy signatures show massive drains of bioelectric activity from the victims. They're literally consuming the life force and developing consciousness. Of the young? It's like they're psychic vampires." Webb felt sick. "How long has this been going on?" Torres pulled up a galactic map with red markers showing attack locations. "Based on the data from our Corvin contacts and the other affected species, at least 5 years, but I think it's been much longer. These creatures have been following apex predator species throughout the galaxy, establishing feeding colonies near their nursery worlds." The map showed a horrifying pattern. Dozens of star systems were marked with red indicators showing successful feeding operations. The creatures had been systematically hunting across the galaxy, targeting the young of the most powerful species. "They're not just attacking randomly," Webb realized. "They're specifically targeting apex predators because their offspring provide the most concentrated psychic energy. The developing minds of creatures bred for dominance and violence must be like gourmet meals to these things." Dr. Park brought up brain scan comparisons between humans and Corvins. "This is why we can resist them," he said. "Look at these neural pathway maps. Corvin brains are optimized for individual combat and dominance hierarchies. Consciousness is centralized and focused, making it easier for the creatures to overwhelm." Webb studied the brain scans and human brains. "Completely different," Park replied excitedly. "Human consciousness is distributed and compartmentalized. We evolved as pack hunters and social creatures. Our brains have redundant pathways and multiple processing centers. When the creatures try to overwhelm our consciousness, they can't find a single point of failure." Torres nodded. "It's like trying to knock down a building by hitting one support beam, except humans have dozens of support beams. The creatures can damage some of our mental processes, but they can't shut us down completely." Webb walked to the viewing port looking out at the stars. So these creatures evolved to prey on apex predators, developing the perfect weapon against individualistic dominance-based consciousnesses, but they never encountered anything like humans. Exactly, Park said. We're the only species they've met that evolved true cooperative consciousness. Our pack-hunting instincts and social coordination abilities make us naturally resistant to their attacks. The implications were staggering. Webb turned back to his team. We need to understand more about these creatures. What are they exactly, and how do we fight them? Torres had been working on that problem. Based on the energy signatures and dimensional readings, I think there's some kind of collective consciousness. Not individual creatures, but fragments of a larger psychic entity that can divide itself to attack multiple targets. A hive mind? Webb asked. More than that, Torres replied. I think they're all part of something called the Devourer Collective. Each attack unit is connected to a larger consciousness that coordinates the hunting across multiple star systems.
Dr. Park?
Up long-range sensor data. If Torres is right, then the individual attackers we saw are just the tip of the iceberg. The main collective consciousness could be enormous, possibly spanning multiple star systems. Webb felt a chill.
Oh.
How do we fight something like that? The same way we fought the smaller units, Torres said. Humans can perceive them more clearly than other species because our brains process information differently. We can target them with modified energy weapons. And most importantly, we can coordinate defensive strategies while under attack. She brought up tactical analysis from the Keth Prime incident. Look at how we responded compared to the Corvin guards. They became isolated and confused, unable to work together. We maintained communication and coordinated our defense. The creatures. Psychic attacks actually made us more effective as a team because we had to rely on each other. Webb saw the pattern. The collective's greatest strength against apex predators becomes a weakness against humans. Their psychic attacks force us to work together more closely, making our natural cooperative abilities even stronger. There's more, Park added. I've been analyzing the energy patterns from our weapons during the attack. Standard energy weapons barely affect these creatures because they're partially phased. But when fired by humans under psychic attack, the weapons somehow become more effective. How is that possible? Webb asked. I think our resistance to their psychic influence extends to our equipment, Park explained. The creatures try to disrupt everything around them, including weapons and sensors. But when operated by humans, the equipment maintains function through our natural shielding. Torres was nodding. That's why Corvon weapons and sensors fail during attacks, but ours keep working. It's not just that we can think clearly, it's that our presence somehow stabilizes the technology around us. Webb walked back to the holographic displays, studying the data with new understanding. So we have natural psychic shielding that protects not just our minds, but our equipment. We can perceive the creatures more clearly than other species. We maintain tactical coordination under attack. Our weapons become more effective against them when we're the ones using them. We're the perfect counter to their hunting strategy. Torres confirmed. They evolved to prey on apex predators, but they never encountered cooperative pack hunters with psychic resistance. Dr. Park was already working on the next phase. We need to test this on a larger scale. If we're right, humans could establish defensive networks around nursery worlds that would be virtually impenetrable to the collective. Webb made his decision. Contact General Thane. Tell him we've identified the threat and we know how to fight it. But we're going to need resources and support from all the affected species. What are you thinking? Torres asked. I'm thinking that the galaxy's apex predators are about to learn that sometimes the best defense isn't being the strongest or the most advanced, Webb replied. Sometimes the best defense is being able to work together and protect each other. And that's something humans have been doing for thousands of years. As his team began preparing their report, Webb looked out at the stars again. The Devourer Collective had been hunting apex predators across the galaxy for years, maybe decades. They had developed the perfect predatory strategy against individual strength and dominance-based thinking, but they had never encountered humanity's greatest evolutionary advantage, the ability to stand together and protect the vulnerable. Galaxy's most dangerous predators were about to learn that their salvation lay not in their own strength, but in the cooperation of a species they had always considered weak. The real war was just beginning. 2 months after discovering the truth about the Devourer Collective, Webb found himself standing in the command center of what had become the most important military operation in galactic history. The Galactic Nursery Protection Initiative brought together species that had never worked together before, all united by the need to protect their young from an enemy that could destroy their future. The command center was built on a neutral space, stationed between Corvin and human territories. Representatives from 4 different apex predator species worked alongside human coordinators, sharing intelligence and resources in ways that would have been impossible just months earlier. General Thane stood next to Webb, his massive reptilian form dwarfing the human scientist. But his attitude had changed completely from their first meeting. Dr. Webb, General Thane said, "The defense grid is ready for testing. We have human teams positioned at 43 strategic locations throughout our territory. Each team is equipped with the new detection equipment and linked to our rapid response fleets." Webb nodded, looking at the holographic display that showed the entire defensive network. Red dots marked confirmed collective feeding areas, while blue dots showed human defensive positions. Green lines connected the positions, creating a communication web that spanned multiple star systems. Lieutenant Torres approached with a tactical report. "The Draconi hives have confirmed 3 more attack sites in their territory. The pattern matches what we've seen elsewhere. The collective is preparing for a major feeding operation targeting their primary nursery world." "How long do we have?" Webb asked. "Based on the attack patterns, probably for days," Torres replied. "But this will be different from the small-scale attacks we've dealt with before. Intelligence suggests the collective is massing for a coordinated assault involving hundreds of feeding units." Dr. Park was monitoring communications from across the network. "The good news is that our early warning system is working. We're detecting collective movement 12 hours before attacks begin, giving us time to coordinate responses." Webb studied the tactical situation. The collective had been hunting unopposed for years, developing strategies that worked perfectly against individual apex predator worlds. But now they faced something completely new, a coordinated defense, a network that spanned multiple species and star systems. The first major test came when sensors detected massive collective movement toward the Draconi primary nursery world of Sector. The planet held over 10,000 developing young, making it the largest target the collective had ever attempted. "All stations, this is command," Webb announced over the network. "Operation Sanctuary is now active. All human teams report status." Responses came in from across the defensive grid. "Team 7 ready. Team 12 in position. Team 21 standing by." Each team consisted of 3 to 5 humans equipped with modified sensors and weapons designed specifically for fighting the SCR score. The Draconi were even more intimidating than the Corvins. They looked like giant insects with metallic carapaces and multiple arms, each ending in razor-sharp claws. Their hive mind society made them incredibly efficient in battle, but also vulnerable to the collective's consciousness-disrupting attacks. Queen Zexera, the Draconi leader, coordinated with Webb from her command ship orbiting Human Webb, she said through the translator. Using the formal Draconi address, our warriors report the mental pressure beginning. The collective approaches. Webb watched the sensor displays as the first signs of attack appeared. Energy readings spiked across the planet as hundreds of collective feeding units began manifesting in the nursery complexes. The Draconi guards were already showing signs of confusion and paralysis. "All human teams begin countermeasures," Webb ordered. "Remember, maintain communication with local forces and direct their fire. Do not engage alone." The battle that followed proved everything Webb's team had theorized. Human Team 15, positioned in the main nursery complex, maintained clear communication, while Draconi warriors around them became disoriented. The humans could see the collective units clearly and directed concentrated fire from the Draconi. Heavy weapons. Target acquired, bearing 270, called Human Team Leader Sam Foster. Dracone, Unit 4. Fire on my mark. 3, 2, 1. Fire. The combined human detection and Draconi firepower proved devastatingly effective. The partially phased collective. Units couldn't hide from human perception and couldn't withstand the concentrated energy weapons, guided by human targeting. But the real breakthrough came when the collective attempted its standard consciousness overwhelming attack. Instead of rendering the defenders helpless, the psychic assault actually improved coordination between humans and Draconi forces. Hey, this is incredible, Dr. Park reported from his monitoring station. The collective's psychic attack is forcing the human teams to rely more heavily on each other and their alien partners. It's making them work together more effectively, not less. Webb watched the tactical displays with growing excitement. The collective's greatest weapon is backfiring. They're designed to isolate and confuse individual fighters, but they're forcing our teams to become more cooperative. Battle lasted 6 hours, far longer than any previous collective attack. But when it ended, the results were unprecedented. Instead of losing thousands of young, the Draconi had lost fewer than 50. The collective, frustrated by their inability to feed effectively, had withdrawn completely from the system, Queen. Zexera's communication crackled with what Webb had learned was Draconi excitement. Human Webb, this success exceeds all expectations. The collective units fled rather than continue feeding. This has never occurred before. Word of the successful defense spread rapidly through galactic communication networks. Within days, 3 more apex predator species requested inclusion in the protection network. The Ravik clans, known for their honor-based warrior culture, offered their advanced shield technology in exchange for nursery protection. The Titan Assembly, a race of energy beings who existed in crystalline forms, provided power sources that could keep human equipment running indefinitely. Webb found himself coordinating a network that was growing faster than anyone had anticipated. Human teams were being deployed to nursery worlds across 47 star systems. Each success brought new requests for protection and new offers of alliance. The most significant development came when the collective attempted a massive coordinated attack against 5 different nursery worlds simultaneously. The attack was clearly designed to overwhelm the human defense network by forcing them to spread their resources too thin. Instead, it demonstrated the true power of human cooperative strategy. Webb coordinated responses across all 5 battles. From the central command station, while human teams on each world worked with local forces to repel the attacks, the distributed communication network allowed instant sharing of tactical information between battlefields. Team 9. The collective is using flanking tactics on Draconi World 7, Webb announced. Adjust your defensive positions accordingly. Team 17. The feeding units on Corvin World 3 are vulnerable to crossfire from positions marked Alpha and Beta. Coordinate with local artillery. The coordinated defense was more effective than the sum of its parts. Lessons learned on 1. World were instantly applied to battles on other worlds. Tactical innovations developed in real time were shared across the entire network within minutes. When the 5-world assault ended, the collective had suffered its worst defeat in recorded history. Not only had they failed to feed effectively on any of the targeted worlds, but human-directed counterattacks had destroyed several feeding colonies and forced the collective to abandon 3 star systems completely. General Thane approached Webb after the battle. Dr. Webb, he said formally, the Corvin Empire wishes to offer you permanent alliance status. Your species has proven itself the most effective military partner we have ever encountered. Webb looked around the command center at the mixture of species working together. Corvin stood next to Draconi, who coordinated with Ravik warriors and Titan energy beings. Humans moved among them all, not as leaders or followers, but as the connecting element that made cooperation possible. General Webb replied, I think we're just getting started. The collective has been hunting unopposed for years, maybe decades. It's time they learned what happens when the prey fights back together. 1 year after the first desperate plea from General Thane, Dr. Marcus Webb stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, the new headquarters of what had become known as the Galactic Nursery Protection Service. through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see ships from dozens of different species docked at the massive space station. Corvin battlecruisers floated alongside Draconi hive ships, while Ravik honor guards patrolled next to human security teams. The transformation had been remarkable. What started as a simple request for help had evolved into the largest cooperative military and diplomatic organization in galactic history. Webb, now wearing the uniform of Director of Galactic Nursery Protection, carried a responsibility he had never imagined when he first agreed to investigate the mysterious attacks. Director Webb, his assistant, Commander Lisa Chen, approached with the daily reports. We now have protection contracts with 67 different species across 18 star systems. The waiting list for new contracts has grown to 23 species. Webb smiled as he reviewed the reports. The irony was not lost on him that humanity, one of the youngest and physically weakest species in known space, had become the most sought-after military contractors in the galaxy. But the results spoke for themselves. Collective activity? Webb asked. Down 78% from peak levels, Chen replied. Our intelligence network reports that the collective has abandoned, pinging 15 star systems entirely, and is avoiding any area with an active human presence. Webb nodded with satisfaction. The war against the Devour Collective had become a campaign of systematic elimination. Human-led teams had not only protected nursery worlds, but had begun hunting down collective colonies and destroying their feeding operations. The creatures that had once been unstoppable predators were now actively fleeing from human-protected space. The success had come at a price, though. The rapid expansion of the protection service had required thousands of humans to leave their home colonies and spread across the galaxy. Entire families had relocated to serve as permanent guardians for alien nurseries, creating a new generation of humans who grew up among the stars. Dr. Park, now Webb's chief of intelligence, joined them on the observation deck. The Titan Assembly has completed their analysis of the collective's retreat patterns, he reported. They believe we've destroyed approximately 40% of the collective's total feeding capacity. The rest, Webb asked, regrouping in the Outer Rim territories, probably looking for species that haven't joined our protection network yet, Park replied. But here's the interesting part. Our long-range sensors have detected what appears to be internal conflict within the collective itself. Webb raised an eyebrow. Internal conflict? The collective has always operated as a unified consciousness, Park explained. But the constant defeats and loss of feeding colonies seems to have created disagreement within their hive mind. Some units are pushing for more aggressive attacks, while others are advocating for complete withdrawal from this galactic region. Chen was studying the intelligence reports on her tablet. If the collective is experiencing internal conflict, it could be our chance to end this threat permanently. Webb considered the implications. The collective had been a unified enemy for over a year, but internal division could make them vulnerable in ways they had never been before. What do our alien partners think about this development? General Thane believes we should press our advantage, Chen replied. The Corvin Empire is offering to provide a full battle fleet for a major offensive against the collective's main colonies. Queen Zexara of the Draconi Hives agrees, Park added. She's prepared to commit half their military forces to a coordinated strike. Webb walked to the central display, which showed a real-time map of the protection network. Blue dots represented human-protected worlds, while red zones marked known collective territories. The blue dots had grown to dominate nearly a quarter of the galaxy's populated systems. We're not just protecting nurseries anymore, Webb realized. We've become the foundation of the largest military alliance in galactic history. The truth was that the Nursery Protection Service had evolved far beyond its original mission. The alliance between humans and apex predator species had created unprecedented opportunities for cooperation. Technology exchanges had accelerated human development by centuries, while human tactical coordination had revolutionized alien military strategies. More importantly, the protection of nursery worlds had created emotional bonds between species that had never existed before. Human guards who spent years protecting alien young formed deep connections with the families they served. Children of different species grew up together under human protection, creating the first truly integrated interspecies communities in galactic history. A communication alert interrupted Webb's thoughts. The Central Command Center was receiving an emergency transmission from the Outer Rim territories. Webb and his team rushed to the communications center, where the main screen showed a desperate message from a species they had never encountered before. The creature on the screen was unlike anything in their database. It looked like a cross between a plant and an insect, with multiple vine-like appendages and compound eyes that reflected light in complex patterns. Its voice, when translated, carried undertones of fear and desperation. "This is Overmind Veltar of the Synthesis Collective," the creature said. "We are under attack by the entities you call the Devourer Collective. Our young are dying, and our defenses are failing. We have heard of your success in protecting other species. We beg for your assistance." Webb exchanged glances with his team. Synthesis Collective was unknown to them, but their situation was familiar. Another species discovering that their strength meant nothing against the Devourer Collectives. Psychic attacks. "Overmind Veltar," Webb responded. "We will help you. Prepare to receive our advanced team within 48 hours. We will need complete information about your nursery locations and defensive capabilities." After the communication ended, Chen looked at Webb with concern. "Director, we're already stretched thin across 18-9 systems. How can we take on another major protection contract?" Webb smiled. "The same way we've handled every expansion. We'll work together." Within hours, the response was coordinated. Corvan Empire provided additional ships and firepower. The Draconi Hives contributed their advanced sensors and communication systems. The Ravik clans offered their fastest ships for rapid deployment. The Titan Assembly provided unlimited power sources for the operation. The mission to protect the Synthesis Collective became a showcase of everything the Protection Service had learned. Human teams worked seamlessly with alien partners, combining human tactical coordination with the unique capabilities of each species. The battle against the collective forces attacking the synthesis worlds lasted only 4 hours, ending in complete victory for the Alliance. But the real victory came in the aftermath. The Synthesis Collective, grateful for the protection of their young, offered to share their biological technology with the Alliance. Their ability to grow living ships and organic technology opened new possibilities for expansion and exploration. Webb stood once again on the observation deck of Harmony Station, watching as ships from the Synthesis Collective joined the growing fleet. The Protection Service now encompassed 68 different species, protecting nursery worlds across 91 star systems. Director Chen approached with a message tablet. "We've received a communication from the Galactic Council. They're formally recognizing the Nursery Protection Service as a major galactic power and offering us a permanent seat on the ruling council." Webb took the tablet but didn't read it immediately. Instead, he looked out at the mixed fleet of ships representing dozens of species. In the distance, he could see a group of young beings from different worlds playing together in the station's recreation area. Their different forms and abilities creating a harmony that would have been impossible just a year ago. "The Galactic Council wants to give us political power," Webb said finally. "But I think we already have something more important." "What's that?" Jen asked. Webb gestured toward the young beings playing together. "We have their trust. The most powerful species in the galaxy trust us to protect what they value most. It's not just political power, that's family," the Devourer Collective had created. The crisis that forced the galaxy's apex predators to seek help from humanity. But in doing so, they had accidentally created something unprecedented. A galactic community based not on conquest or dominance, but on the simple human instinct to protect the young and vulnerable. As Webb watched the mixed fleet preparing for their next mission, he realized that humanity had found its true place in the galaxy. It's not as conquerors or explorers, but as guardians. The species that had evolved to hunt together and protect their pack had become the protectors of the entire galaxy's future. The stars seemed brighter somehow, filled with possibilities that none of them had imagined when General Thane first asked for help protecting his people's young. The apex predators had come seeking guards for their children, but they had found something far more valuable. They had found partners in building a galaxy where all species could thrive together. Protected by humanity's greatest strength, the willingness to stand together and defend those who cannot defend themselves,